Everything in my life predominantly has been white. So it's difficult for me to figure out what proportions during those white periods of my life have been predominantly black. I think my earliest memories are probably sort of around the time when my mum was pregnant with my little brother. And my little brother is 6 years younger than me, so they've got to be around about 6 that I start to sort of remember stuff with any kind of clarity. My dad is Nigerian. He's from Benin. He came in the late 70s. My mum is from Freetown, Sierra Leone. She came around a similar time. They both came to the north of England, actually. They didn't come straight to London. My mum is a midwife, and she went to school in Salford, when Salford was like Enzi. And my dad, I think he might have done his undergrad in Bolton or something like that. So that's where they met. They met and got married in Bolton, and that's when my older brother was born. I think most of my memories of primary school are pleasant memories. I went to, it's called Plumcroft Primary School, still there. It was literally opposite the road from my house. Plumstead was quite mixed. You had sort of some middle class white people, you had black people. At the time, I don't know what year the Somalian crisis was, but there were a lot of sort of refugees sort of coming over from East Africa at the time. So there was a lot of sort of Somalian kids in the school as well, but it was pretty mixed, and they're pretty pleasant memories. You know, I don't look back on my school like some people do and think, oh, you know, I got bullied or I had these issues. Primary school was pleasant for me.
So when you say mixed, if we were to split that into kind of a race and social class, how would you roughly break that up?
If we were to go race, I would say maybe as much as a third of some other ethnic background, whether that was Asian, black, whatever. And it was still, you know, still predominantly white school, but there was enough of a mix in there that I would consider it a pretty mixed school for South London at the time, probably. Socioeconomics, that's a difficult one because it was really mixed. If you look at where the school is in relation to the surrounding area, you go in one direction, you get pretty big sort of Victoria mid-terraces. You go in the other direction, you get some pretty rough council estates, or certainly they were rough at the time. So socioeconomics, I would say, I'd probably distinguish race from socioeconomics and say that in terms of working class versus sort of middle class, it was maybe a 50-50 split. In terms of, if you were to then break down the demographics of race, I think even within that sort of 50% of middle class, you'd find a relatively comfortable proportion of black or minority parents who were sort of middle class. My mum was a midwife. My dad he had a business, but I mean, my dad's a PhD in mechanical engineering, so he's a mechanical engineer. So we were all right. And there were quite a few families in the school that were of a similar ilk, even being of colour. From an academic standpoint, I was always just okay. I was maybe on the upper side of okay. Never brilliant, never excellent. It was the fear of discipline at home that kept me on the straight and narrow, because my dad doesn't play bad grades, he doesn't play bad marks. So it was more so that kept me. I just wanted to be on the right side of good. I didn't need to be excellent, didn't want to extend myself academically, but I was fine. The teachers, the only thing they used to say is I talk too much, but other than that, I was a pretty respectable kid.
Extracurricular activities, is that something you got involved with in a lot?
Beavers and Cub Scouts. What was the makeup? There was black boys in Beavers. I mean, everything in my life predominantly has been white. So it's difficult for me to figure out what proportions during those white periods of my life have been predominantly black. So Beavers and Cubs, for instance, there were black boys there, but the predominant race would have been white people.